Welcome everybody on a early Sunday morning. When I see suited and booted figures all around, I'm appropriately dressed in an alternate way. Uh, and I think even the venue of this conference is rather an alternate one instead of a typical Taj or Oberoi. So while we are while this conference probably, as I understand, is more about alternate, but I'm told to speak about the vision of the picture for this country ahead, and uh, that's hardly alternate; it's all mainstream. Uh, but the principles of investment have always remained durable and consistent over centuries, whether you define it as mainstream or alternate or whatever else. So let me delve into some of the key ideas, as I believe is the picture ahead. Before I get to connect those ideas with what India represents or Bharat represents, let me first talk about, in very brief, the key ideas that I believe are at a root of value creation. And these ideas have prevailed over centuries, and therefore, time to time, there may be rethoughts and revisiting in the minds of people. But I would believe that the ideas at the root of value creation really have not altered over centuries of organized investing in the world. And which are these? So first principle to my mind is growth. Without growth, there is no value creation in a business or in equity, which is nothing but a form of investing in a business. The second is really the ideas that make growth pervasive, prevalent, and lasting. Third is the quality of the growth. And fourth, obviously, is the margin of safety, that what you buy or what you get into, whether it is at some discount to what you believe it is worth. Now, in a minute or two, I'll link all of these to situation of Bharat as I believe in the period ahead. But before that, a quick summary or a quick kind of an elaboration of these four ideas. Growth is fundamentally the most important aspect of value creation in a business. Without growth, there exists no possibility of sustained value creation. And even in nature, nothing remains where it is. If things don't move, they actually regress. And therefore, growth is a very fundamental, basic enabler of the value creation, and there is no getting away from it. Time to time, people talk about growth and value as if these are two different ideas. And I've never really understood why these are supposed to be two different ideas. And why do they have to be alternates appropriately in the context of this conference? Because you need growth and you need value, and you need both of them. And therefore, this debate to find one or the other is something which I found always very mystifying. Second is what makes growth prevalent, pervasive, well-founded, so as to last and last. And I think principally three things: predictability, durability, and solidity or resilience. Predictability is very important. Two businesses starting at the same point of time, achieving identical milestone after a given period of time. But a business which is seen to be more predictable will have a much better value than the other one, even if both start at the same time, culminate at the same time with an identical outcome in terms of the business achievements, but a business which is seen to be more predictable will have a greater value creation. And this is no theory. If you see it over a period of time and examine heuristics and the past such behavioral pattern, invariably you will find that this repeats ad infinitum over decades and centuries. Second is durability. This is simple to understand. Other things being equal, a growth which is going to last longer obviously is more valuable than a growth, similar growth, but only for a shorter period of time. The third, which is important to understand, is the resilience, an ability of the growth to ward off challenges, ability of that growth to be resilient and not to fizzle away in the face of challenges in the environment, which are invariably going to be forever. Challenges in the business environment, geopolitically, macroeconomic, micro, various other things will always be there, and there is no getting away. There is no point of satiated complacency ever. And therefore, these challenges, how businesses are able to inherently, resiliently ward off and prevail itself, has a deep contribution to the value creation. Therefore, growth is a foundation for value creation. You may call it a cake, but what makes growth prevalent is a very important icing on the cake. The third factor which takes the same idea ahead is the quality of growth, the capital efficiency, the return on capital employed, return on equity, inherent character of a business to last and last, in a balance sheet of a business which is strong enough to mitigate time to time some challenges, for example, like COVID, which came unannounced, and whether businesses can survive and last. Various other things. The quality of growth is a very vital idea. Again, lot of times people think about quality and value as if they are substitutes for each other. If they think about growth and value as a contrast, often I read and I hear that quality and the value as if these are alternatives. These are substitutes. And I have never really understood that why it is supposed to be that. Quality is a very real thing. Quality is not merely a nice looking decorative principle to garnish or to demonstrate. Quality is a very real idea which makes growth prevail. Quality makes the business durable and lasting. Quality is something which is not a shibboleth or a fetish for its own sake. Quality is a real idea at the root of economics of investing, and not merely a nice sounding English or a nice sounding decorative principle in a PPT. It is quality which makes something, basic wings for compounding. And compounding is at the root of mega returns to be created over a period of time at the expense of shunning temptation of immediacy. And finally, the margin of safety. And that hardly needs elaboration in this group. Ultimately, good economics is not only about getting benefit from the growth and the garnishing coming from the quality of growth as well as the prevalence of the growth. It also must benefit from a margin of safety. That's something, whatever you conjecture it to be worth today, discounting imagined future of that business and convert it into mathematics of cash flows and profits and its growth rate over a period of time to some conjecture, some idea of a value today. And if that value is a real number in your mind and eyes and is indeed real, then obviously it pays to buy it at some margin of safety, so that is the fourth element of value creation. All simple ideas, nothing very complicated, and investing rarely is complicated. Investing is fundamentally very straightforward and simple the art and science of practice which has evolved over centuries. Where is India or Bharat poised for this? And I think, when I think of the first idea, the growth, for the first time, this country has created a capacity for growth. It is not about just the growth rate, which indeed, in my opinion, going to be the fastest compared to any other major economy for a length of time, and faster compared to India's own history in whatever periods of the decades that we look behind. But it is not about just the growth rate. India fundamentally, for the first time, has created a capacity and architecture, a fundamental building blocks in the place to be able to create growth in a sustained way. In other words, to make growth pervasive. In other words, to make growth prevalent. And why it has happened? Because of the various set of reforms. Whether it is in form of the roads that we are building, or whether we are building the new airports or the ports or the railway redesigning, inward focus on or Atmanirbhar focus on defense, and which is spawning of number of hundreds of various industries and businesses and technologies, or what is PLI-led manufacturing incentivization, because without that really no country or an economy can progress on a sustained basis. And therefore, even 2-3 years back, semiconductor ecosystem in this country would have been unthinkable. Even today, it has not yet taken birth, but there is great belief. And the first chip in all probability in Gujarat will get produced in the third or the fourth quarter of 2025, which is when the first important milestone will begin. Or the digitization, technology embrace, UPI, and the payment revolution in the country is a great example of what we can do. I think Bharat today is the best DPI, or the digital public infrastructure anywhere in the world. The kind of various stake of the technologies and the components which have been built on top of it, whether you build a UPI-led payment revolution or ONDC-led e-commerce transacting capability, or many other healthcare-related the ecosystem which is in the offing to be built. All of these is really stemming from that very powerful idea of digital public infrastructure, and based on that, what is made available free to the citizens and the businesses built by government, but allowing interface of all of these to build a very powerful ecosystem. Reforms, when they are one-off, when they are not deep enough, and when they are like an afterthought rather than coming from the heart, those at best can give you an arithmetic outcome, at best. Arithmetic sum total of all those reforms. Usually it will fall short of even that arithmetic sum total. But when reforms are deep, they are many and numerous, and when they are interconnected, they build an ecosystem, and therefore reforms don't become one-off. They become an ecosystem, a system which gives it a force multiplier, and therefore the outcome no longer is arithmetic addition, but a geometric multiplication. I think one of the most important ideas of the capacity building of this country in terms of attaining growth in a sustained basis is this idea of building reforms which are interconnected, and therefore it reaches and allows you to attain a rising crescendo where all things combine together. The second very important idea, because of the set of reforms, the growth is now seen to be durable, even in the face of the second quarter when the growth rate has been underwhelming at about 5.4%. But in all probability, that is something which is short-lived, kind of a blip. Fundamentally, economy and the character of the economy is on a footing where the growth will remain elevated and for a sustained. For predictable growth, sustained growth, durable growth, and resilient growth. Resilience, one very important example, Ukraine-Russia war, which is about to complete 3 years in February, and yet in any other period of time, in any other situation of a similar kind, India would have caved in, and India would have suffered deeply. And that conflict seemed designed to doom India's oil vulnerability and dependence even more. But here we are, in that war which is still ongoing, India is actually carved out a beneficial position in consuming those hydrocarbons. The total estimate of the savings that India has made by negotiating adroitly the oil and other resources with Russia and others, using the power of India that it is at margin, the fastest consuming energy, hydrocarbon as well as non-hydrocarbon in economy in the world. India has saved $39 billion purely from the hydrocarbon in these less than 3 years time frame. This is where the resilience and the strength comes by. Third is the character of the growth. For the first time last year, return on capital employed of Indian corporate sector, return on equity of the Indian corporate sector has been number one in the world. All along, that always has been the hallmark of great capitalism of America. For decades, American capitalist system has thrown up highest capital efficiency in the world. For the first time last year, 2024, India has been number one country in the world in terms of the economy, which has produced highest ROC and highest ROE. Not only that, indebtedness of the economy has come down. 5 years back in 2019, just before COVID, balance sheets of India produced debt of 80 units compared to net worth of 100 units. The same debt equity ratio from 80 to 100 today is 40 to 100. It has become half, while surviving 2 years of COVID and producing growth during this, yet the indebtedness has come down. Third, in the same environment where a lot of challenges have prevailed, cost of capital has come down. 10 years back, best corporates in India couldn't have borrowed at less than 12.5%, 13%. Today, best companies in India would be able to borrow at 7.5%, 7%. Home loans would have costed you 14%, 14.5% 10 years back. Today it costs you 8.5% to 9% and probably will come down. And therefore, remarkable taming of the cost of capital on the back of taming inflation structurally, on the back of fiscal and current account discipline has ensured that we are where we are. And therefore, today, not only lenders have the best balance sheets in the world, whether banks or non-banks, 2-3 minutes. And the individual and the borrowers also have the best balance sheet. Therefore, cost of capital has come down, return on capital employed has gone up and has been number one in the world, debt equity ratio has come down, and lenders and the borrowers both are in a terrific shape, all preparing for a condition to grow and grow meaningfully for a long period of time. Finally, the margin of safety. And all the time, there is not a single day goes by when somebody or the other doesn't opine about valuation of the market. So here is one more opinion on Sunday morning. So take it or drop it in a dustbin, but for whatever it is worth, I find it really mirth inspiring when constant efforts are there to keep judging valuation. Really speaking, in terms of numbers, there is nothing to suggest that price earning ratios are anything outrageous. Certainly not for a 30 stock index or a 50 stock index when you judge over the last 10-year history. Mid-cap index certainly is more elevated than the history. Small cap index is even more elevated than the history. But valuation is never a number. Valuation is a context. And without building the context, opining on valuation as a number, whether price earning multiple, which is rather a very deficient way to judge valuation, or any other form of number to judge valuation without the context, is a particularly difficult or a bad idea. Without the context of capital efficiency, without the context of growth, without the context of the durability of growth, without the context of the solidity and the resilience of growth, without the context of enabling balance sheet and financial structure to sustain the growth, talking about valuation in isolation is a number for a near term of 6 months or 12 months or 2 years is a fundamentally very big error to make. The second and the last point I'll make, lot of time, people keep talking about looking at the spectrum of the past, that mid-caps are outrageously priced and the small caps are outrageously priced and so on and so forth. While it is not my case to say that none of the stocks are overvalued or exaggeratedly valued. Indeed, when I see some of the amusing incidents where some auto dealer manages to get for a 12 crore issue on SME board, some 7 or 8,000 crore worth of application, clearly things are overreached there. And there are a number of others where where somebody, Hyundai, wants to collect some 27,000 crores, all as an OFS, not a single rupee, into the balance sheet of the firm, and right at the topsy kind of a price, and yet the money goes through. You know that there is some amount of huge generosity and over belief about it. But make no mistake, mid-caps and small caps are not there incidentally, or are not where they are in a general way looking at the spectrum of the past. Spectrum of the past indeed suggested that most of them tended to fizzle out, to die quickly, or to get obliterated in the face of the heat of the environment. But today, many of these mid-caps and small-cap businesses represent terrific ideas. They are backed by entrepreneurs, because the system today is encouraging entrepreneurship, also of the startup and various other things in a huge way. And these businesses have access to capital, have access to infrastructure on which earlier there was a deficiency. And therefore, many of these businesses have superb balance sheet, capability, desire, fire in the belly, capital efficiency, and the growth in order to fire up their longevity and the value creation. I am not making comment. Surely there will be enough individual names which may be outrageous, reasonable, or undervalued, but in general, dismissing away that mid-caps are outrageously priced or small caps are outrageously priced, I think is a big mistake to make. And the past is never, never, ever a good guide to the future. Like Charles Darwin said in The Origin of Species, the seminal work of Charles Darwin, that it is not the species which is the most intelligent one that is the greatest right to survive, or the most industrious or the hardworking one which is the greatest right to survive. But the species which is the most adaptable one and continually adaptable one is the species which flourishes and lasts and lasts. And therefore, in investing, we have no choice but to be adaptable all the time. There is no place for ego. There is no place for shibboleths. There is no place for held prejudices. It is all about continually keep evaluating your own ideas, challenging your own ideas, adapting them to the new emergent reality in a right way, not in a fizzled out way. And therefore, I think growth rate, its prevalence, its quality, and the margin of safety, in my opinion, all are in place. If you look at last 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, which have been the two biggest dollar return generating markets in the world? It is America and India. In some period America, in other period India. But two important markets, dollar based investment returns has been India and America. If I have to make a forecast for the coming decade or more hopefully, then I would, even at the cost of sounding predictive and fully aware of that risk of making that sticking the neck out, I would say it will be India which will be the number one market in the world in generating returns, and probably by far and with a margin. Thank you.
To be louder, I'm sorry, but this is such a powerful keynote address presented by such a legend in the industry.